The founder of the Soviet secret police removed from his pedestal outside KGB headquarters in Moscow. An angry Mikhail Gorbachev describes his 3 days as a prisoner.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. In the Soviet Union today, Mikhail Gorbachev is again in charge. The question is how much in charge? He says the last 3 days have convinced him he must move faster to change the Soviet way of life. The man who did much to save him, Boris Yeltsin, tells the people that he will force the pace. Since late last night, much of the world has waited to hear Mr. Gorbachev's version of what it was like to be suddenly cut off from the power he has so wielded for 6 years. When Mikhail Gorbachev, his wife, and one granddaughter got off the plane in Moscow last night, it was clear they'd been through a difficult experience. Even this morning, when he met the world's press to discuss what had happened, it took a moment to get his composure. They had been vacationing at their dacha in the Crimea, overlooking the Black Sea. The regular dacha guard, 32 men, were on duty.
On the
18th of August, at 10 to 5 p.m., I was told by the head of my guard that a group of people had arrived asking to see me. I said I wasn't expecting anybody, hadn't invited anybody, and hadn't been told of this. And why are they here?
The chief of the guard said he did not know, but he recognized one among the group.
Plekhanov, the head of the KGB guard, showed up with them. Otherwise, our guard wouldn't have let them through.
Gorbachev went to the phone to see who had sent them.
I picked it up. It had been cut off. And the third and fourth, I picked them up. I picked up the internal phone, all dead. I was cut off, incommunicado. Then I understood.
Gorbachev gathered his family together and told them what was happening.
And I would stick to my position right to the end. No blackmail, no threats, no pressure would have any effect on me.
Raisa, he said, had handled it better than anyone. Gorbachev then met with the intruders and learned the details of the government's takeover.
I said that you and everyone who sent you are adventurers. You're simply going to ruin you, but to hell with you.
When the conspirators announced that he was sick, he was calm, but deeply distressed.
The doctor wrote his opinion in several copies, and he distributed it so that everyone would know the true state of the health of the president.
Gorbachev said how pleased they were to have found an old radio in the house.
And the people from the guard managed to hook up an antenna and find out what's going on. We got the BBC, best of all.
Though he was not completely clear about it, Gorbachev said that the family took pictures while they were held prisoner.
This is one of them.
The ordeal for the Gorbachev family lasted 3 days and 3 nights.
72 hours of full isolation ensued. The idea obviously was to break the president psychologically. It was very rough. But that's how it went on.
Last night and today, Mr. Gorbachev made it a particular point to thank Boris Yeltsin, the president of the Russian Republic. Mr. Yeltsin has been hailed at home and around the world for rallying opposition to the coup, and he will clearly be an even more potent political force now than he was before. Mr. Gorbachev may find that his most significant challenge now comes from those like Mr. Yeltsin, who will no longer tolerate Gorbachev dragging his feet on reform. Here's our Moscow Bureau Chief, Jim Laurie.
The contrast could not be more striking. Boris Yeltsin at one with the cheering crowds, declaring the Russian Republic would fly a new tricolor flag, minus the hammer and sickle. Mikhail Gorbachev, thankful to Yeltsin and the people for his release, but preferring to thank them not in person, but with the formalities of a television address and the controlled environment of a news conference. For all his trauma, Gorbachev appears to remain essentially unchanged.
I've never tried to conceal my position. I am a committed socialist, and I see nothing wrong in that.
While Gorbachev refuses to leave the party, the fast pace of change here threatens to pass him by. 2 Baltic republics today outlawed the party, and Gorbachev's current and former political allies have deserted it. Edward Shevardnadze told the crowds, those who died this week during the Kremlin coup should be honored by burial in the Kremlin wall. And if there's no room, he said, there are some comrades who could be dug up. Boris Yeltsin today demanded that moves to remove Communist Party cells from the military and workplaces be stepped up. He blamed them for promoting the coup. He also called for an independent defense force for the Russian Republic. Gorbachev rejects such radical thoughts, but did vow to work closer with the republics.
We will act together with Boris Yeltsin, together to make consensus and cooperation a permanent factor.
Tomorrow, Gorbachev will meet with Yeltsin and other leaders of the republics on their power-sharing treaty and consult with them on permanent replacements for the coup conspirators. As to the 8 plotters, Gorbachev denounced them as primitive, crude, and crafty. When a reporter asked why he had appointed them, Gorbachev admitted he had made a mistake.
Maybe I didn't know certain things. That doesn't excuse me. I should have known. You see, a man with a great personal drama. It's a severe test to be so disappointed.
The principal conspirators have been accounted for. Interior Minister Pugo apparently shot himself just before police arrived to arrest him. Defense Chief Marshal Yazov and KGB boss Khrushchev under arrest. Prime Minister Pavlov under guard at a government hospital. From what he called the most difficult trial of his life, Gorbachev held out hope that he had learned some lessons.
I have learned to be decisive in moving forward with all our reforms, and that means we must regroup our forces.
Gorbachev said tonight that the failed coup could prove to be an enormous opportunity. But Gorbachev will have to show that he can keep up with the fast pace of change evident in the streets in the past 4 days. Peter?
Jim, Gorbachev and Yeltsin, they both made it clear they seem to need one another. But has there been a real change in tone? When, for example, will they meet one another?
They will, in fact, have a one-on-one meeting tomorrow, but it'll be in the Kremlin. And one wonders if Gorbachev missed out on an important opportunity today by not joining Yeltsin, embracing him in one of the public rallies, as Yeltsin was out there before the public as well today.
But Yeltsin is very supportive of him, isn't he?
Well, Yeltsin is supportive of Gorbachev, but one wonders to what degree. After all, Yeltsin does have his own agenda. He's far more radical. He's willing to go far further, it seems, than Mr. Gorbachev.
Okay, Jim Lordy, our Moscow bureau chief, thanks again. At his news conference today, among the people Mr. Gorbachev thanked were those who defied the Soviet army and stood up in the streets for the rule of law. Today, some of those people were out in the streets of Moscow again, making it clear they want more. Here's ABC's Rick Inderford.
More than 100,000 people turned out for the demonstration. They cheered Yeltsin, they cheered Russia, and they made it clear that Mikhail Gorbachev is not their favorite. The sign reads, "From Russia with love." From the Russian parliament, they marched past the Kremlin in Red Square. The streets of Moscow belong to the people today. It wasn't very long ago that Mikhail Gorbachev tried to ban large demonstrations like this. It's unlikely he will try to do that again. These people came to his rescue. And these people had a few scores to settle. They broke a few signs at the headquarters of the Communist Party and painted "Freedom, Freedom" on the headquarters of the KGB, then turned their attention to the statue across the street, Felix Dzerzhinsky, founder of the Soviet secret police. Dzerzhinsky was introduced to graffiti. Next, metal cables were attached to the statue. Police stood by while protesters argued whether to take Dzerzhinsky off his pedestal now or later. Tonight they decided now was better. One elderly Russian in the crowd said, "I lived through lives all my life, but I am glad I lived long enough to see this." Rick Inderford, ABC News, Moscow.
Some further indication today of the disfavor into which the Soviet Communist Party has fallen. The president of the Kazakhstan Republic, Nursultan Nazarbayev, one of the most powerful national politicians in the country, announced today that he has quit the party altogether. And the party's own newspaper, Pravda, has a new masthead. Pravda used to call itself the official organ of the Communist Party. Now it calls itself the all-political. newspaper of the Communist Party. In a moment, we'll have more on the events in Moscow. We'll also see how some Palestinians have found themselves on the wrong side again. And a federal judge getting tough with abortion protesters in Wichita, Kansas.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer.
Calling out around the world. Are you ready for a brand new beat?
The Ford factory authorized clearance is going on now. Get financing as low as 2.9 on Escort. Save up to $2,600 on F-Series pickup. Save on Taurus, Aerostar, Thunderbird, Ranger.
They're dancing in the streets, yeah.
It's all at your Ford dealer now. The one and only Ford factory authorized clearance.
I've got a 6 a.m. flight. I've got to get some Z's.
Nitol safely helps you fall asleep fast so you can get your Z's. Nitol or Maximum Strength Nitol.
Nitol will help you get your Z's.
Ever feel too clumsy some mornings to make a pot of coffee? Wake up to Maxwell House filter packs. You get a perfect pot every time. Maxwell House filter packs blended with Colombian beans, because better beans make better coffee.
One of the first things Mr. Gorbachev did today was to find temporary replacements for some of the coup's ringleaders. The acting leader of the KGB will be Leonid Shebarshin, who was said to believe the secret police must be subservient to the president's authority. And for the time being, the chief of the military general staff, General Mikhail Moiseyev, will be the new defense minister. And Vasily Trushin replaces Boris Pugo, the interior minister who reportedly committed suicide, as you heard a moment ago. Also, as Jim Laurie reported earlier, Mr. Gorbachev said today he thinks the failed coup will clear away some of the obstacles on the path to economic reform. The average Soviet citizen may be forgiven for being a little skeptical. You could see it today, as always, on almost any street. Here's ABC's Jim Hickey.
Galena Mikhailovna didn't go to any victory rallies today. She had more important things to do. I spent all day in the market, she says. We spend so many hours standing in line. I want so much just to come to a shop and buy what I want. The Mozaevsky State Food Store is 15 minutes from the Kremlin. Nothing that happened there this week has changed anything here. I've been waiting for 8 hours to buy sugar, this woman complains. Now they tell us they have run out. While Soviet politicians wrestled with a coup, ordinary Russians wrestled with more basic matters, trying to feed their families despite chronic shortages and prices that have more than doubled in 4 months. Most here are relieved the coup failed, not because Mikhail Gorbachev is back. After all, they blame him for their troubles. But some now believe a momentum has begun that will lead to faster reform, that life will get better. Of course, it is going to change, says this woman. It is changing already. Not everyone feels that way. Galena Mikhailovna has stood in too many lines, has heard too many promises of reform. It is very hard, she says, to be hopeful about the future. Jim Hickey, ABC News, Moscow.
President Bush, from a distance, sees it differently. The way he put it today, isn't the world an awful lot better off now than it was 48 hours ago? The president's focus now is to encourage more reform in the Soviet Union to get Mr. Gorbachev to move faster. ABC's Britt Hume is with the president in Kennebunkport.
By this afternoon, the president was back in shirt sleeves, and the sense of emergency here had passed. After he and Secretary of State Baker watched the Gorbachev news conference, Mr. Bush announced a step toward putting things back to normal.
I made a decision today to lift the hold that we have had on the various economic programs that I think will clearly benefit the Soviet Union.
But that does not mean the administration is ready to provide any additional economic aid until it sees further economic reforms. And it now expects those reforms to accelerate.
Now, with some of the harder liners on the sidelines, clearly, it perhaps frees up President Gorbachev to work very closely with President Yeltsin to see that these reforms continue.
Similarly, the president indicated he now wants the negotiations over freedom for the Baltic states to be speeded up.
There have been some reasons, some of which have now been gotten out of the way, that this process has gone much slower than I want. I think slower than Gorbachev might want, but clearly slower than Yeltsin wants.
The repeated references to Yeltsin reflect his new standing. But the president was quick to argue that Gorbachev has not been diminished by the failed coup.
I don't see that his stature has been weakened by it. Here's a man who stood by his desire for reform and democracy. And he was seized and put under house arrest.
And Mr. Bush refused to criticize Gorbachev's naming of Mikhail Moiseyev, whose loyalties during the coup are unclear, as acting defense minister.
That doesn't exactly come under the heading of our business. I would be a little resentful if somebody told me who I ought to have in my cabinet from Moscow.
Privately, though, senior administration officials were dismayed by the Moiseyev selection. Said, one, I wouldn't want that guy behind me in a dark room. And they were also unpleasantly surprised by the continued devotion to the Communist Party displayed by Gorbachev in his news conference. Peter?
Brent, can I come back to this question of aid? The Soviet ambassador in Washington made a pretty direct appeal for American help, or he said the Soviet Union is going to have a tough time getting through the winter. Is the help going to be there?
Well, Peter, I think the administration will make a distinction between massive economic aid, direct cash aid to bail out the whole economy, and what could be a large program of humanitarian aid to deal with famine or suffering as a result of a bad winter.
Okay, Britt, thanks very much. Britt Hume up at Kennebunkport in Maine. When we come back, we'll go overseas again to see how the attempted coup in Moscow has put some Palestinians on the defensive again.
We bake pearls made of denture material in this blueberry pie to prove how powerfully Efferdent, America's leading denture cleanser, removes this tough stain, even in between. Efferdent, stronger than stains.
A lot of you insist on eating wheat thins and oat thins because they taste good. But the whole idea behind these crackers is that you can eat them without feeling guilty. That's why they're baked, not fried. I mean, eat them because they're delicious, and you miss the whole point.
Oh, isn't this an amazing price? Oh, yeah. Thank goodness for spray and wash. My kids are always coming home with stains from who knows where. How do they do that? I read a team of forensic dry cleaners is trying to figure it out.
I need some Permasoft shampoo and conditioner. Without this, my hair would look like overcooked linguine.
Didn't you just have a perm?
Yeah, I just want to make sure my permanent isn't temporary.
Is this the same Kmart that we always went to?
Sure.
What a change.
This is the sound of Unisom, the sound of sleep. With Unisom, you hit your pillow and fall asleep fast. Tonight, you can sleep more soundly with Unisom, America's #1 sleep aid.
When minor arthritis pain holds you back, you need strong medicine. Bengay, with not just one but 2 pain relievers. Warming power for fast relief. Bengay helps get you going again. Bengay, fast, strong medicine for pain relief.
Secretary of State Baker has had a talk with the Soviet foreign minister and says he believes the Soviets are still every bit as committed to a Middle East peace conference. As for those in the Middle East who praised the coup, Mr. Baker says they've shown an uncanny ability to back losers. They include a number of Palestinians. ABC's Dean Reynolds is in Tel Aviv.
Not for the first time, some Palestinians have chosen to back the wrong horse. A year ago, it was Saddam Hussein. And earlier this week, as their newspapers showed, they were happy to see Mikhail Gorbachev get the boot from the KGB. Because Gorbachev had let Soviet Jews come to Israel, had improved relations with the Jewish state, and had accepted U.S. policy in the Middle East, many Palestinians had no use for him.
I am very happy, very, very happy. Because, you know, in my opinion, maybe I am mistaken, he was a member of the CIA of America.
The Israelis drove through that opening like a Mack truck.
Exactly as they were dancing during those nights, terrible nights that Israel has been attacked by the Scud missiles, they're very happy now.
Of course, the coup failed. And today, while the PLO was backing away from what it called the personal views of some officials, Israeli embassies around the world were handing out statements from Palestinian groups supporting the Soviet junta. Moreover, with world attention riveted on Moscow, the Israelis chose this moment to establish a new Jewish settlement in the West Bank city of Hebron. Hardly any Israeli objected, largely because, as one Israeli newspaper put it, the Palestinians make it so easy to hate them. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
In other news today, the Nuclear Weapons Club may be on the verge of getting bigger. The British defense magazine Jane's Intelligence Review says that North Korea now appears able to make a nuclear device made possible by a new facility that will allow them to process their own nuclear fuel. When we come back, news at home and the fight over abortion in Wichita.
It's the last 3 days to save at Color Tile. Big savings up to 25 to 50% off ticketed prices. Color Tile, like ceramic tiles now 49 cents, vinyl styles now 51 cents. All DuPont Stainmaster carpet drastically reduced 25 to 50% off ticketed prices. For example, now only $11.99 a square yard, plus mini blinds, wall coverings, and wood flooring too. Color Tile, it's your last chance to save 25 to 50% off ticketed prices. Color Tile, only through Sunday.
Dear Folgers, I tried the Folgers switch on 3 of my fellow sisters. Instead of our usual ground coffee, I made Folgers Crystals. They all complimented me on the taste and aroma. "You do make wonderful fresh brewed coffee," was repeated more than once. They never realized it was Folgers Crystals.
People who thought they were drinking fresh brewed coffee were secretly switched to Folgers Crystals.
Tastily yours, Sister Mary Norbert Bauer.
3 years ago, we set out to create a sports sedan. But first and foremost, we set out to create a Lexus. Introducing the Lexus ES300 Sports Sedan.
Here's news. If your athlete's foot won't go away, you could have more than athlete's foot. You could have a secondary yeast infection. That's right, yeast.
Only Mycotin cures both athlete's foot and secondary yeast infections with Myconazole. Step up to the mic. Mycotin.
These days, there are more pain relievers than ever. But last year, more people switched to Tylenol gel caps than any other. Extra strength Tylenol gel caps. Concentrated, powerful, easy to swallow. Join the switch to Tylenol gel caps.
In Wichita, Kansas today, anti-abortion demonstrators have been warned by a federal judge to stop what they are doing or their financial assets might be seized as a punishment. The protests have been going on for 5 weeks now, and there is no sign of them letting up. ABC's Chris Bury is there with an explanation.
Anyone obstructing access to this clinic or violating any conditions of the preliminary injunction will be arrested.
The get tough policy of a federal judge has escalated into a war of wills. After Operation Rescue stepped up its siege of 2 abortion clinics, leading to more than 2,500 arrests, Judge Patrick Kelly jailed 3 of the group's leaders, fined them $10,000 each, plus $500 a day until they end the blockades. One of them, Pat Mahoney, today announced a hunger strike from jail.
I cannot eat food while I am being held as a political prisoner in America.
This afternoon, Operation Rescue rallied to raise bond money.
Stop by our legal office and be willing to put up your property.
National leaders of mainstream organizations opposed to abortion have been reluctant to support or criticize Operation Rescue. Many welcome any new attention to the abortion issue, but also worry about the tactics in Wichita.
I've been arrested. This is my 6th time.
The continued use of children to block abortion clinic gates has alienated Catholic clergy who at first publicly supported the group's efforts.
We should absolutely be against that.
The repeated rushes to block cars of clinic patients, the harassment,
Love you, baby!
and confrontation have made more moderate opponents of abortion uneasy.
When you hurt somebody else's rights, that's what I disapprove of.
National organizers had planned to leave town this weekend, but now that Operation Rescue leaders are in jail, the group vows to stay, and many here believe the tension will only worsen. Chris Bury, ABC News, Wichita.
Federal law enforcement officials have carried out one of the biggest dragnet operations ever. Several hundred arrests in more than 80 cities. Most of them picked up have done time for violent crimes and are considered among the most violent criminals in the country. They will all be charged with violating federal gun laws. On Wall Street, stock prices rose slightly today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up by about 5.5 points to close at 3,007. The trading was active. We'll be back in just a moment.
April
spoke English like I spoke French. But somehow we talked for hours over coffee. Coffee so rich, I thought I'd never taste its like again.
Discover the deep, rich flavor of Maxwell House Rich French Roast.
Encore un café?
What?
More coffee?
Oui.
Maxwell House Rich French Roast, blended with Colombian beans because better beans make better coffee.
Like Coach always said, hit him in the numbers.
Who do the pros call for an all-pro deal on hot, delicious pizza? Who do you think?
Hello, Domino's Pizza.
Call now for Domino's kickoff deal. 2 medium cheese pizzas with 4 servings of Coca-Cola Classic or Diet Coke for just $9.99. Add your favorite toppings for just a little extra. And get free NFL quarterback trading cards.
Only from Domino's. Call now, dude. Yeah.
Perhaps you're losing a little money on annual credit card fees. Perhaps you should use the card that charges no annual fee. And keep your money where it belongs. It pays to discover.
Today, there's a prescription strength cure for athlete's foot. Lotrimin AF, the #1 prescribed athlete's foot medication available without a prescription. Lotrimin AF, the prescription strength cure for athlete's foot.
Tonight, Diane Sawyer in an exclusive phone conversation with Soviet President Gorbachev. Hear the story of the crisis from the inside. Diane Sawyer is there, prime time tonight.
Just to review, Mikhail Gorbachev is back on the job. More than 100,000 people came out to celebrate in Moscow today. Not necessarily for Mr. Gorbachev. It was Boris Yeltsin's name they were chanting. And it was the Russian Republic's tricolor flag they were waving, not the Soviet hammer and sickle. Thousands of other Muscovites had their celebration in front of KGB headquarters, where they removed the enormous statue of the founder of the Soviet secret police. Mr. Gorbachev is promising to move faster on reforms. He told a crowded news conference today something about his captivity. He knew, he said, when he was in trouble, when an unannounced delegation came to his dacha on the Crimea, and he picked up not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 telephones to find out what was going on, and they were all dead. They were isolated for 72 hours, he said, but they managed to find a radio and listen to the British Broadcasting Corporation, the Voice of America, and Radio Liberty. He thanked them all. That's our report on World News Tonight. Later, Diane Sawyer reporting from Moscow on Primetime Live, and Ted Koppel, who is also in Moscow. We'll have a full wrap-up of the day's events on Nightline. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
And now, the news continues with Channel 2 News.